Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us back here at Prime Meridian Resources YouTube channel. We're, of course, sitting here with Brian, and we want to do a deeper dive on the company today. But first off, Brian, how are you doing?
I'm great, Michael. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well myself. So let's start it off nice and easy. Brian, you and I are getting in an elevator. I look at you and I ask you, what does Prime Meridian Resources do?
We're building out a portfolio of resource projects. Our focus is on areas where historically there has been not only mining, but mining at a world-class level. So when you look at our Canadian assets, we're in the Red Lake District, obviously a significant gold producer, not only on a Canadian context, but in an international context. And then we're also in Sudbury, which is, nickel, copper, PGM country, and significant contributor in all of those components, both on a Canadian basis and an international basis.
Okay, so give me a little bit more on the projects and where they're currently sitting and like what the next steps are on each project, which ones you're putting more of your focus on and so on.
Well, we've been to date, Michael, just in the process of building out our positions in the two projects. So in the Red Lake area, we started out with two smaller pieces of claim blocks. We've now, as of news release today, we've now expanded that significantly. Our history in Red Lake goes way back. The first claim that I've owned in our group, collective group owned in the district was back in, I think, 2002. Wow. We were a significant, in another company, we were a significant landholder in the district. We know it very well, especially the southeastern area of the district known as Dixie. So when we went in, we were armed with a lot of knowledge relative to what we wanted to achieve. And we've executed on that now. I think we're one of the primary, if not the primary landholder with claims over both the Packwash Fault and the Sydney Lake Fault in that region of the district, which is just south of where Great Bear Resources has found their spectacular discovery and have been building that out as a resource over the last couple of years.
Okay, so you have a strong foundation. You're in an area where there is more than likely some gold, right? Easily one of the best places to look for strong resources is where resources have been found. I guess correct. That's classic location.
Yeah, and Kelly, we did the same thing. So Kelly is just outside of the traditional Sudbury mineral belt or whatever you want to call it district, and we picked up a property early before really anyone was focused on what we're now called battery metals. The nickel, copper, PGM type resources. And Sudbury historically has been in production for a long, long time. It's a very rich endowment of metals in those categories. The distinction about the Kelly project and the reason we liked it is it's kind of an inverse of a typical PGM in the fact that it has very high palladium and pretty standard sort of 1 gram-ish platinum and a nice gold kicker kicked in with copper and nickel as well. So the early stage work that was done there really highlights the project as a palladium project, as sort of the primary or the most, what we'd call the most significant metal endowment within it. And we've added a significant ground position to that asset as well. And we'll continue to do that within the district as we can. And again, another land position in a well-endowed district historically, it's been a world-class producing district. But in this case, it's in the battery metals and not in gold per se.
Yeah, Brian, for the most part, a lot of people who are into mining are more familiar with gold, right? And I often convert back to gold as well. And people understand grams per ton in relation to gold, but they might not understand the measurements in terms of what you get back from assays from some of these other ones. So is there anything specific in terms of what you look for versus gold when you're referring to these other elements?
Well, I mean, we like particular metals. Obviously, gold is an interesting product to go after because if you can find it in accumulated quantities, the shareholder return is amazing. You can also get that with PGMs. So, for instance, if you look at palladium, the last time the Kelly project saw work, Palladium was probably in a $200 to $400 trading range. and palladium has been, in the $3,000 range recently.
Yeah.
So if you look at all of the standardized precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium's the number one priced precious metal now, whereas before, it used to be sort of the tag along. And that's related purely to the fact that the world has gotten far more focused on eliminating, the pollution coming from carbon-based vehicles. And palladium is rarely ever a primary metal. It's always a credited metal to other production. So it's very hard for palladium to actually respond to demand and supply transitions because of that.
It makes sense. So then, Brian, what would you say, is there any other companies that you could easily compare Prime Meridian Resources to and say like, hey guys, in like the next 5 to 10 years, this is what we would look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at companies that are focused more on developing assets and taking them either to production if it's warranted within the context and capital structure of the company, or taking them to the point where there's a maximum value for a transaction with a larger entity, subject obviously to that resource being big enough to attract larger entities. But our focus, and it's not just in the resource sector, it's anything that we do as a capital organization, we're always looking to build a business. So when we get involved in any transaction, whether it be resource or it be technology, the two focuses that we have, we're always looking to build a sustainable entity on its own 2 feet. And if an opportunity for an M&A transaction comes along or the sale of an asset comes along, then we'll identify that. And if it provides value to the shareholders in the context of the offer, then it's something that we'll look at. But the focus is to build a company.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Brian, let's shift gears a little bit. Tell me a bit about the financial health of the company and outstanding stock and so on.
Yeah, we've spent the last couple of years really cleaning up the public company, eliminating some debt that was residual on the balance sheet related to a previous history. We've done that now, and now we're basically full speed ahead relative to the acquisition, expansion, and development of the asset base. We have the ability to raise capital. We've historically been able to do that with the transactions that we're involved in. PMR has done some smaller financings. We'll probably look at doing a flow-through financing in relation to the assets that we've just spoken about in the not too distant future in order to get the work programs down, which we're just qualifying and quantifying it as we speak right now.
Okay. And kind of last but not least, getting into it, what would you say the real upcoming X factor or catalyst could be for Prime Meridian Resources that people should just kind of keep an eye out for?
Well, I don't think we're getting any value for the assets that we've put together. I think once we start telling the story to the public markets, which literally started this week, people will get interested in the claims that we have acquired. And then I think they're going to quickly get interested or further interested in them as we start to do the work on these claims. And again, if you take the Kelly property, for instance, it's already had work done on it. We know that property has produced some numbers historically. With the assets that we have in Red Lake, we're surrounded by companies that are either in exploration programs or in development programs like Great Bear. And that story, that company story, we'll be telling that over the next month or so as we get prepared to do the work programs on those two distinct assets.
Wonderful, Brian. Well, thank you for coming on. Do you have any last words for people? Anything else you want to add about the company before we go today?
Yeah, I'd like it if people just follow us and watch our execution. I think they'll be impressed with that over a period of time. And we're, internally, we're quite excited about the assets that we have. But obviously, this is the resource exploration space, and we need to demonstrate that and qualify and quantify.
Wonderful. Well, Brian, again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions for Brian, don't be afraid to ask. Also, don't be afraid to visit the website linked below. But for now, stay tuned. We'll get you some more news over the wire as soon as it comes in. Brian, have a wonderful day.
You too, Michael. Thank you very much for your time.